Welcome to the Cold Blooded Caffeine Podcast. I'm Trey.
And I am McKendrick.
Did you forget who you were?
I forgot for a second.
All right. I'm back. And we are back again for another episode. So we were only about, 2 weeks late based on me saying that we were going to do one every week, but that's okay. We have returned from all of our road tripping across the country
and
for the year. We're done for the year.
2024 travel for coffee
is over. Yeah, so
that's a check mark.
That was a check mark. Yeah, we got you. So we might have a couple of other things locally, but we're done.
Yeah.
Out of state at the very most, probably done for the year.
Yeah.
In honor of that, we thought it would be fun. I came up with some road trip questions, I guess, like experience questions, stories that we can tell about our road trip experiences. Because, we do go to a lot of different places all over the country. We've been doing this pretty much nonstop for the past 3 or 4 years. So
right.
We're going to go through. I've got a lot of questions, so I'm going to try and go fast. McKendrick's already heckling me for the amount of questions that I have. So I'm going to try and go fast. But, I thought it'd be fun just to tell some of our experiences from the road. There's a lot of boring mixed in with some excitement usually. So let's get started with the first question. What's the longest road trip we've ever taken for a reptile expo, and how did we manage it? And those questions might be a bit different. Maybe not. Actually, they might end up being about the same now.
Well, I guess to answer the question, I have not taken the road trip to Dallas.
Right.
Which would have been the longest one.
Mileage-wise, the longest trip. Right.
Right.
But then this most recent time we went to Tinley, time-wise, was about the same. So we're talking about 17 hours in a single day. Leaving at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time and arriving at whatever 17 hours later is.
17 hours later, yeah.
Is the longest trip that we've ever had. And how did we manage it? Very poorly, I think.
We made it.
And we did make it.
We did it in one day. So.
I after we did it in Dallas, I swore that I would never make a 17-hour drive again in one go. And literally the next trip that we took, I think, was 17 hours. But I think that we didn't realize that it was going to be 17 hours going to Tinley because there was the Hurricane Helene that impacted western North Carolina, which normally Tinley Park is about a 13-hour drive for us. But because we had to detour around and we weren't familiar with that route, it took us significantly longer. So to answer the question, both of our answer is 17 hours in a single day.
Yeah.
All right. What is the craziest or funniest thing that ever happened to us during a road trip? I actually had to think about this one because
I was about to say, I don't know that I
there's
know.
Not that many crazy ones, honestly. We saw a car blow up one time.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that?
We
were riding. Yeah. Luckily, it was on the other side of the interstate.
Yeah. But it was it blew up. There was an explosion that happened.
As we were driving by, the car on the other side.
I just thought of one. Okay, wait, what was your other one?
I was going to say we've seen some gnarly car accidents. We actually saw one on the way to St. Louis, and those are unfortunate.
Yeah,
never been a part of one, thank goodness. But we've seen a few gnarly ones.
What about the race cars when we got into St.
Louis last year?
Yes.
That was terrifying.
Yeah, they were like, oh my gosh, they had to be.
I was going, when you get in those metro areas, you tend to go the speed of traffic. Yeah. So I was going faster than the posted speed limit.
Yes,
and
for sure.
they went past me like I was going backwards.
It was crazy. That was crazy.
Like I was probably going at least 70, and it was the fastest I've seen a vehicle go.
And they were maneuvering in and out of traffic. It was reckless. They were very reckless.
So that's a good one. That's actually one of the craziest. Were you with me? I think no, that was in Schaumburg when we saw the guy on the motorcycle with the parrots. That was me and Corey. A guy riding down the street on a motorcycle with a bunch of birds. Like not just one, but like 5 or 6 birds. Riding on this motorcycle.
What was the animal we saw coming out of the mountains on the way to?
I saw a bear.
Tinley? Was that no? It wasn't a bear.
I saw a bear and an elk.
Elk. It must have been an elk. Yeah, we saw the
elk.
Because
we were riding separate. Yeah,
yes.
Corey and I were riding in front, and we saw a bear, and you missed the bear.
I missed the bear, but then the elk was walking
like right
toward the street, and you were ahead of me. So by the time I got to where the elk was. He was pretty doggone close to the street.
Yeah. He was a little further. There was a car. You can usually tell, like, this was going through Great Smoky Mountain National Park.
Yeah.
And, you can usually tell when something's going on because there will be people pulled off to the side taking pictures or something.
Right.
And so that's how we saw the elk, but it was a little off into the woods. But you got clogged up.
Yes.
And was a little behind us by the time you got there.
And he was coming straight toward the street. I was like, oh, wow, this is quite amazing.
Yeah.
Felt like you were riding through a little zoo or
like
something.
A little safari park.
Yeah.
All right. Number 3, how do we stay motivated during long drives to reptile expos?
We don't.
McKendrick hates these drives.
I'm not a fan. I absolutely love going to the shows. Like, the shows are fun. They're entertaining. We have a good time socializing, talking, networking. But getting there and getting home,
I don't really mind the drive, honestly. Like, I don't mind getting in the car and just driving. Like, going to, like, my in-laws are in Atlanta. Going to Atlanta, that's easy. I mean, it's a 5-6 hour drive. I don't mind getting in the car and popping over.
So these drives definitely make you appreciate the shorter ones.
For sure.
Like me, originally from Augusta, Georgia, which is about 2.5 hours from here. I can go down and back.
Now
in
you're
the
just
same
like,
day. That's nothing. When people complain about that, I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Try 17 hours.
Yeah.
So, but staying motivated. I
think you just have to break up your day. Like, you just have to break it up into segments.
Right. And just doing different things. Like, we have a lot of conversations, actually a lot of ideas that we've had for the business have come out of some of these long rides. So taking notes and thinking about the future and what strategies we can do, what other lanes we may want to play in,
and I think we'll have meetings during the day, like we'll have our stand-up meetings, and we'll there are things that break up the day. The worst part for me on the road trip, motivation wise, is the last 3 hours. Like, if we're taking a really long drive on that, so we usually leave Thursday morning. That last 3 hours on Thursday night, right before we get to the destination, usually because we're having to go through a metropolitan area to get there, and it's kind of stressful right at the end. I have a lot of lack of motivation there. And then the worst lack of motivation is Sunday afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
So you get back in the car after you've worked all weekend.
And the whole show on Sunday, pack up, which we can get done in about an hour, and then just go. And you're not going to make it home that night. You just got to.
You just have to make it as far as you can. And those are the ones. I don't even know if I have a hack of how we you don't have a choice.
Just go.
Because it's the difference between 17 hours in one day or 5 hours tonight and 12 hours tomorrow. So you feel like you have to
pack up on caffeine and hit the gas. Just go.
All right. So are you a podcast listener, a music listener, or an audiobook listener to pass the time? You personally.
Music first, audiobook second.
Okay. Podcast third?
To pass the time. Podcast third, yeah.
Okay. So this is surprising. I don't really talk about it a whole lot, but I play quite a few instruments. And so it's going to be funny. So I play guitar, piano, banjo, drums, fiddle with a bunch of
Sounds like a whole
stuff.
nother podcast.
But... yeah, probably. But music is third for me. I don't listen to music to pass time.
Right.
So it's like I don't know. It's odd, but I would pick audiobook first, podcast second, music third. I like music just fine, but I would rather ride in my thoughts than ride to music.
Right.
I don't know.
No, yeah. I mean, it is more entertaining for me. Music is more entertaining for me to like keep my energy, motivation high than audiobooks and podcasts. Like I'll get tired. Like I have to be more motivated to listen to it and being eager to learn than because my mind is in a different place.
Yeah. For audiobooks, it has to be like an action novel. Like I have to be really invested in it.
Right.
It can't just be I read personally a lot of nonfiction, but I can't just listen to a nonfiction book for 17 hours.
Right.
I would, yeah. So it has to be either a fiction like thriller or podcasts that are shortened and like make me feel like I'm moving through things. Right. Okay. Moving on. What is the best meal or snack that you've discovered during a road trip? And I'm going to swing this one towards like, we can talk, not necessarily on the road, but like if you had one at a final destination, What's like your favorite meal that we've had in our adventures?
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
And honestly, I hate to think like, so I'll go first while you think, because I made up the question, so I've had more time to think about it. So that's why I'm kind of jumping in ahead. I'm going to say like the St. Louis trip that we just had honestly had some really good, like we've gotten super lucky with like the food out of St. Louis. I don't think of St. Louis as a food town when I think of food towns.
Right.
But you know, we had gyros that were super, super good.
They were really
and
good.
We had those tacos that we had that were super, super good. But then we also, you know, every time we go to Tinley, we go to Illuminati's and have deep dish pizza,
right?
Which is definitely at the top of the list of things.
And I was about to say, we don't really. It's not like we go out and seek like restaurants that are unique to
usually it's like a choice of opportunity, like what's closest or what sounds interesting based on,
because I was going to say the pizza. I was going to say deep dish pizza out of the Illinois area is probably it. But yes, St. Louis, especially this last trip, it was phenomenal. Like, man, like we did, you know, a couple of Uber Eats. Even the food at the venue was pretty decent.
Yeah.
So,
which is pretty rare.
That's rare. Yeah. I mean, sometimes even rare to have food at some of the venues that we go to. But
okay, cool. And then number 6, have we ever had a road trip that went completely wrong, and what happened? We haven't, but I did.
Oh,
so the first trip that we ever made to Tinley. Well, so we had a bad one to Dallas.
Okay,
but no, I'm talking about the first trip to Tinley when the truck blew up.
when we were launching the business.
Yes. So was that March 2022? I drove the truck and trailers before we had the van.
Right.
I drove the truck and trailer. You flew
because I had just started.
You were still working.
Well, you were.
Well, I was too. Yeah.
But I had started the new job, and I didn't have like the time to take off like I wanted to. So I was like, the best I can do is meet you there.
Yeah.
And I just flew.
So I drove, and long story short, the serpentine belt. So I still have a Toyota Tundra, and the serpentine belt drives pretty much everything inside, including the air conditioning compressor.
Right.
And the air conditioning compressor seized up, tore up the belt, and I lost power steering. I lost everything. And in the middle of nowhere, Tennessee, like I actually had to detour off the interstate because of some either construction or an accident. I don't remember. And I was literally going through the mountains of Tennessee, and the belt snapped. And so luckily, this was at like 5:00 on Thursday afternoon. Luckily, I was able to find a mechanic that was still open, stayed open for me. They closed at 5, but they stayed open for me. Was able to replace the serpentine belt and get back on the road that same night. Thank goodness. But it lost me probably, 4 hours or so that day. So by the time I got back on the road, it was 9 p.m.
Even the fact that you were able to get it done that day
was
is
remarkable. Like
miraculous.
I had started looking for hotels in that town,
right?
Because like it was undrivable. Like the power steering was out. I had to manhandle it into a parking lot to get it stopped. I mean, and I was pulling a trailer.
Right.
So,
I was back in those days, we're still pulling the trailer to shows.
So, thank goodness. I mean, that's by far the worst. You mentioned Dallas. We had the air conditioning in the van go out.
The compressor
went out. Luckily, it was not connected to the belt, and there was a different belt.
Yeah.
And so it didn't take the whole van out. But Corey and I, poor Corey, had to ride all the way back from Dallas. Like literally an hour outside of Dallas is when the belt snapped.
That's terrible.
And it was hot. Like it was not Dallas. I don't know, doesn't get cold very much, but it was It was not a very cool route back home, and we had to drive. So we ended up driving late into the night so that the temperature would drop down. Right. We drove until like 3 or 4 in the morning. This was coming back on Sunday night, and found a mechanic. They looked at it and they were like, you're going to have to order a new compressor. It's going to be, 24 hours. And we're like, all right, we're just going to roll with the windows down.
Make it work.
That was the best getting back home and getting into my truck with air conditioning that I've ever had.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on, number 7. Do you bring reptiles with you on road trips, and if so, how? No, we don't.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. We used to, for some of our shorter trips, bring setups to show what reptiles in those coffee-producing areas look like. But we decided with the amount of travel, the amount of space that caging took up, it didn't make sense for us to do that anymore. Now, we do take animals, like I will occasionally buy animals at shows and bring them home, but they're in transportation containers, not like large cages, right?
Right.
It's a bit easier. I do have to pawn them off on either McKendrick or Corey, depending on who's with me, to put in their hotel rooms because I keep mine very, very cold. So I can't keep animals in my hotel room. I mean, I'm not paying for the electric. You might as well, right?
So just
jack it
use
down.
It up, 64 degrees. Like,
I mean, yeah, why not?
It's your animals. They're like your kids, man.
Yeah, and you and Corey like it hotter than I do, so you know.
Oh my
okay.
gosh.
That's the answer to that one. Number 8, how do we prepare our coffee gear for the road? I'll let you handle this one.
Our coffee gear? What do you mean?
Yeah. So we take
all the
brewers
stuff?
and
Oh
sinks and stuff.
So it has evolved and gotten better over time. We do have a checklist now that is digital
and ever changing.
There's been several trips that it's just a handwritten list with check marks by it multiple times for the different trips that we've been on. Then we finally converted it to a digital document.
It's always you don't forget the big stuff. It's always the little annoying stuff, like the scoop for the ice that we forgot, or the measuring cups that you forget, or something like that.
But I mean, it's a lot. Like, seriously,
it takes
is a lot
us
of stuff.
What? How long do you think to pack up? Like, if everything's ready to go, probably.
What do you mean
2
ready
hours?
to go? Like,
I mean, like here, like physically present here.
Yeah, it kind of depends. Yeah, maybe 2, probably a little bit more than that, I would think. Yeah. I mean, and a large part of it is kind of like laying everything out in a way to make sure that you don't forget anything, but also so that you can like strategically load the vehicle.
That's
as well, right?
That's the
You
big
can't
thing.
just like, oh, this bin is done, throw it on the truck. Well, no, it needs to go on at a certain time in a certain place.
And there's stuff on the truck already, right? Like that truck isn't just for reptile shows. We actually operate out of that, so you have to offload the truck.
You have to offload everything out and then strategically put everything else
because
on,
there's shelves on the side. You have to put stuff in the shelves first before you put stuff in the middle area.
Just
stuff has a certain way that it works. So it's a lot of effort, and that is probably the main reason that limits us on the distance we can go, because of the equipment that has to go in the van and us having to physically drive the van to stuff. What role does coffee play in keeping us going on these long journeys? I'll open it up to caffeine in general. What role does caffeine play? Any road trip coffee hacks?
Interesting. So for me, it's caffeine for sure, and I'll bounce back between just being open, coffee and 5-hour energy drinks, right? So I am kind of a mix between both, because a lot of times when I drink coffee, because it's more liquid, I'll have to go to the restroom.
I was going to say the same thing. It's a balancing act, right? It's like I want coffee, but I also don't want to have to stop every 2 hours.
To the restroom
because the van, loaded down the van will make it about 3.5-4 hours.
Yeah.
So we would prefer not to stop, but every 3.5 or 4 hours.
The tank down, right?
But then you got to play
lots of coffee,
right? You got to play the game. So I agree wholeheartedly. I definitely start the morning with a coffee. I probably end up in the afternoon after dinner with another cup of coffee to keep me going. And then usually after the shows on Sunday, I hit an energy drink.
Yeah.
Because usually I'm hot and I don't want hot coffee like after loading up the van and everything.
Right.
So I'll usually hit an energy drink on Sunday night to make it. We try to make it about 5 hours that Sunday night.
So usually I am coffee only in the mornings. That's it.
Yep.
And then after that, it's energy drinks.
Yeah. All right. Number 10. Which Reptile Expo was the most memorable road trip destination for us, and why?
Most memorable.
I think it's got to be. I mean, we go.
First Tinley?
Well, yeah, probably overall the first Tinley, but I mean, I would say Tinley Park in general is the one that we look forward to. I mean, we love every show we go to. We don't go to that many, and so we are lucky enough to be able to select the ones that we want to go to. So the ones that we go to are the ones that we want to go to. None of them are bad, but I think Tinley Park is by far the one that we look forward to the most.
Yeah, I would agree.
And the first Tinley is special just because it was the first one.
Because it was the first one, right? Yeah. And ever since then, things have evolved, gotten better.
We've gotten a lot better, and we've made a lot more money than we did with the first one.
From placement, where we're placed, like all of those things have made a difference in kind of the evolution of the coffee business.
All right, and that leads right into number 11. How do we choose which expos to attend, and does the road trip factor into the decision? So to answer the second part first is yes, it definitely does. We're not able to do West Coast shows because of the drive. So we're limited to about 17 hours.
And if anyone has any ideas of how we can
to note, I have looked into shipping, and it is debilitatingly expensive, right? So we would be looking
nothing would ever be as inexpensive as what we're doing now, right?
Yeah.
We're
so
two drivers
and just
taking
going.
our own vehicle
and
driving there. And the most expensive thing we pay for is a hotel.
Yeah.
Right. So if we didn't do that,
we're open to ideas.
Yeah,
but
somebody can figure it out.
Right now,
can loan us a private jet or something. For
helicopter,
something. That we can just land right in the spot.
That's
2-3 hours later.
But
that would
right now
fantastic.
We're limited to about 17 hours,
which
radius
sucks.
So
reduce that. I feel like we should just go.
But that's the answer to it. Does the road trip factor into it? Absolutely, it does.
Yeah.
The U.S. is a very large country, and we can't make it all the way across because we have to also factor in getting back and doing our 9 to 5.
Right. So the longer we're gone, then we're also neglecting
we have customers here,
business that we need to be doing, right?
So, but to answer the first part, we choose expos largely by volume of people through the door. That's probably our number one consideration because we're a volume based business. We don't the margins in coffee are low. So we have to have a large number of people. So if we're not at an expo, it's not because we don't like that expo or don't think that it's a good expo. It's probably just because it doesn't have the volume of people that is necessary to justify the expense of taking that setup. Because, I mean, it's several thousands of dollars of cost, because we have to take 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 people, hotels, travel,
right,
food.
So when all those expenses start adding up, and you're selling just cups of coffee and bags and maybe if some merch, it's not worth it, right? The value just isn't there to go and spend the amount of money you would for an entire weekend for your whole crew at a hotel, and you're trying to make up the difference by what you're selling at the show.
And secondarily is we do look at the show itself, the promoters of the show, the standards of the show. So like if a new show approaches us, which they do fairly regularly, like we've probably had 3 or 4 different promoters within the past 3 months ask us to do their shows, I have to look at a lot of different factors, including what other shows are in the area. Is it likely that the show is going to be successful? What values does that show have? What do they support? What are other vendors saying about the show?
Now, we will do the local show here in Charleston, right? Yeah. So that one makes sense. We're not spending any extra money. We're just using our time.
But I'm talking about, like, if I'm looking to add another show on top.
There's just a lot of factors.
There's a lot of factors that go into it. Probably the number one thing that I will look at for a promoter asking us to do a show is volume of people through the door.
Right.
All right. Number 12. What is our must-have items for successful road trip to an expo? What are our must-have items for a successful road trip to an expo? Do you have anything that you're like, I'm not getting in that van without
X? What would that be?
I mean, I'm gonna say like easy stuff like laptops and chargers. Like I don't know what else.
Yeah, you gotta have
like
that.
I can't even think of like anything that I'm like I cannot. Corey brings Doritos. That's a pretty
all the time.
Yeah, that's a pretty big one. I need snacks of some sort, and I think we'll get into that in a second.
Must-haves. I don't know that we have any.
None of us are high maintenance, I don't think.
Right.
Like,
and sometimes we do a pretty poor job of even packing. It's like, I forgot a jacket.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't bring any long sleeves.
I didn't bring a jacket to Tinley, and it was like 40 degrees. Yeah.
Like, great. Yeah, that was not a great idea.
Luckily, Snake Discovery gave me the
blazer.
The blazer,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, the Snake Discovery blazer.
I need to bust that out. I still have it.
You should have worn it.
I should have worn it today, yeah. I think I just said ward it.
It's okay. You make up words all the time. I'm used to it.
All right, next question. How do we plan our routes and stops to stay efficient and comfortable on the road? We touched on this a bit, so try and stop every 4 hours.
Yeah, try to basically
optimize our stops.
Yeah,
right. And then we also mentioned trying to make it 5 hours on Sunday,
right?
At least. So if we end at 5, we at least get until a normal sleeping time. There's no reason to go and then sit in a hotel and wait for bed. You know what I mean? You could be on the road. But other than that, we've gone to most of these shows enough that we know routes that we like.
Right. And stop locations, right?
Yeah.
So
hotels that we like.
Hotels, but like
even gas stations. Like we end up getting the same gas stations.
We go to like the truck stop style gas stations, so we can
easy in and out.
And whenever we stop, it's stop for everything. Like we got to go ahead and top off the gas. So if it's a situation where drunk too much coffee early and we got to stop, all right, let's just top off the gas. Go ahead and make sure snacks are good.
Within
use the restroom.
2 hours either side of a meal, you get food.
Just do it.
We're not. Yeah. So
yeah, I think those are the things that are like the consistent things that we do every single time.
And we've come to find things that we prefer. Like
right.
you said, the truck stops or specific hotels along the route that we've found
it just gives you
that are good stopping points.
The best options for everything, right? They usually have some type of, fast food or some cooked food option there, all the snacks, all the drinks, plenty of restrooms. I don't have to worry about restroom out of order type stuff at a regular gas station. So makes sense.
All right, next question. Any advice for other vendors or coffee enthusiasts taking their first long road trip? You're never going to be prepared enough, I think. Like, I always feel like I'm underprepared every show. So, like, don't get worked up about, like...
Yeah, but the other part of it is get you
prepared.
A good checklist.
Get prepared. Get a good checklist.
Get you a checklist.
But like, it's not the end of the world if you feel stressed about. You will feel stressed about it.
Because just like us, your checklist will change, right? So I think having a checklist is helpful for sure. But you will also realize like, oh wow, there's things that I completely did not think about that should be on the checklist. I mean, I know we've added batteries. We've added a first aid kit. Yeah. We've had to add, just very random things that, again, it's all about being efficient, right? So it's efficient packing, getting things done, getting out the door, but also making sure you are bringing the right things so that you don't have to have those concerns that you are always thinking you forgot something. So
I agree.
All right. What else? We wrapping up. Almost.
Two more questions. All right. If we could road trip anywhere in the world for a Reptile Expo, where would we go and why?
Oh, I think we already go there for me. I don't know. Where else would I go for a?
I want to go to the West Coast shows eventually one day. That's a workup thing.
Do you want to do?
Why? There's some big shows out there that I want to see. Okay. There's some Southern California shows, some Pacific Northwest shows that I think location-wise would be cool to go to, like, L.A. and the Pacific Northwest would be cool to do shows. But, I mean, and I'm not looking to add shows just for the sake of adding shows, right? It would just be... something that's cool. I also would love to one day, and I don't know if it would call it a road trip, but like there's like some of the Germany, like the Europe shows, and maybe some Asian shows that I would like to attend at some point, but never like we wouldn't do coffee or anything at those shows. It just doesn't financially make sense unless somebody's paying for us to be there.
Which I think is the evolution of what is coming in 2020.
If anybody wants to pay us to be at a show, we'll show up.
We'll start doing meet and greets and signing autographs on bags of coffee or something like that.
Or get somebody else's autograph if you want that. We'll pay.
Right.
We'll go find the person and get an autograph for you. There you go.
Yeah, we got a few people
concierge service
come out for us. Like, oh my gosh, I came here knowing. And
most people are happy that we're there.
Yeah.
All right. What is your last question before we wrap up? What is your go-to road trip snack? If you're reaching in, if you're going into the gas station after halfway through a road trip, what are you grabbing?
So it's funny because I don't know that I've ever really had a go-to, but I think recently mine has become peanut M&Ms and like Arizona green tea.
Okay. All right.
It's weird. I don't know. Like that's just.
Well,
I get the big bag of M&Ms.
I get the M&Ms. It gets that sweet and salty kind of craving.
And the green tea makes me feel healthy, even though I know
it's loaded with sugar.
Let me get that Arizona green tea.
It's that green tea.
Yeah, that's the good stuff. I'll be healthy after eating my whole family pack size.
The gallon size of well, those Arizona green teas are huge.
Yeah, they are. They barely fit in the cup holders.
A child's grocery bag size M&Ms and stuff. Yeah. Okay, so mine are probably some chips of some sort. I like chips. Probably Doritos, and I waffle back and forth between Cool Ranch and nacho cheese. Right now I'm a nacho cheese kick. And then some soda. Again, I waffle back and forth between Pepsi and Coke. I know it's a sin, but depending on whether I want sweet or acidic, I'll let you choose which one of those is which.
Yeah.
I go for Pepsi or Coke.
I've never really been a big soda drinker. It's never been my thing.
It's going to sound bad, and I'm sorry, Mama, but I grew up on soda. So I've been drinking soda from a very early age. Caffeine-free. My granddaddy turned us on to caffeine-free sodas when I was a very little boy, and so my mom would buy the caffeine-free sodas. But like caffeine-free Pepsi. Mm-hmm. But like my mom and dad, when I was a kid, they would have like just like 2 liters stacked in the cabinet of Pepsi. And so I've been drinking soda for a very long time, so I like soda a lot. It's my the carbonation fix and everything. So
cool.
That's it for me. Doritos and soda. All right. So I hope that was fun. I mean,
it's cool. I mean, like I said, we're finishing up for the year, so I think it's letting the folks know the ins and outs of traveling and how we make it successful, make it work.
A lot more goes into it than you just seeing us there physically. The shortest trip that we made this year, apart from Charleston, was Charlotte, right? Which was 3 hours.
That was pretty good.
And it went from 3 hours all the way up to 17.
Yeah.
And we are we are probably going to add at least one show, maybe 2 shows next year in addition to what we're doing. So you may see us around.
I'm flying.
Flying. You're out.
I'm getting sponsors. So I'm looking for sponsors. McKendrick is looking for sponsorships to get him to the shows so I don't have to sit next to Trey for 17 hours. Anybody out there want to sponsor me, please? Or just buy a ton of coffee.
So that we could both fly.
That's right. www.coldbloodedcaffeine.com.
Right.
Matter of fact, come on, Trey.
Let's do it. All right. This episode of the Cold Blooded Caffeine Podcast was sponsored by Cold Blooded Caffeine. Coldbloodedcaffeine.com for all your specialty coffee needs. You can check us out. We just dropped some new coffee. There's going to be a video on that. So if you're watching this podcast, check out our Nicaraguan honey processed video that's out now. Also sponsored by the Coffee Run. If you're local to the Charleston, South Carolina area, check us out, coffeerundelivery.com for all of your business-to-business coffee needs. All right, McKendrick, that was fun. Let's do it again next week.
I'm looking for a sponsor.
He really wants to get out of these road trips.
Somebody sponsor me.
All right.
Save me.
Cold Blooded Caffeine.